I'm so excited to have you join me today in our second episode. So, in our first episode, Helen and I talk a lot about how to know exactly what we want in life. And today, I would like to explore how can we deal with, uncertain times and find the clarity. Before we dive in, Syed, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. My focus is how fear and uncertainty impact decision making, particularly in the context of professionals and entrepreneur, how that impact innovation. So that's my focus, and this is what I do at the moment. So I'm an interdisciplinary researcher. I dive into neuroscience, psychology, and behavioral science to find out answers for my own niche and my own field.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Syed. So, both, I have been thinking about this recently pretty much. So, when life gets messy and overwhelming, how do we cut through the noise and find a sense of clarity? What actually happens inside our brain or our bodies, even during uncertain times?
The way the brain is designed or evolved, it is
Mm,
not comfortable with uncertainty. It does not like uncertainty at all, right? Because the brain focus is survival and passing on the gene from the evolutionary biology perspective. That's what it is focused on. So, as long as there are patterns, as long as there's clarity, it's comfortable. That's why culture is so soothing to human brain. And every time somebody threaten our culture, is basically the brain is threatened. The brain is thinking, I had a clear understanding of the world around me, and now someone is telling me that this is wrong. So it
mm,
goes angry and it goes mental. That's basically uncertainty, right?
mm,
Now, what happens is that fear will be activated by uncertainty. That's always the case, okay?
mm,
Because now what uncertainty is doing is it is sending signals to the different parts of the brain. Particularly, we have an area in the brain called the amygdala. It's a pear, it looks like an almond, it shapes like an almond, and the word amygdala means almond in Greek language. Okay, so they are a pair. They're situated in the middle section of the brain, kind of behind our eyes. And the job of the amygdala is to make sure that we survive. Okay. Thanks
mm,
to amygdala, we are talking to each other at the moment, right? So amygdala is like your ministry of, or the intelligence, or the ministry of defense, right? It never sleeps. It's always looking and scanning for dangers in the horizon.
mm,
Now, what happens is that when you toss in uncertainty, amygdala overshoots, right? The fear, it immediately sends signals to an area of the brain called the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus will initiate your stress response. Okay, because now the brain is looking for certainty. It's looking for pattern. Okay, so that stress would shut off. This is critical now. The stress, which is because the amygdala is involved. So amygdala, and there is a region in the brain just behind our forehead. It's called the prefrontal cortex. And this region is responsible for decision making, for planning, for rational thinking, whatever we call us, whatever we call us intelligent, right? The humans, it is because of the prefrontal cortex. So prefrontal cortex and amygdala are interconnected. They talk to each other, they communicate, they send messages to each other. And one of the purpose of the prefrontal cortex, the evolutionary development of the prefrontal cortex was to rein in on the amygdala because amygdala was making, or the emotional brain was making wrong decisions.
mm.
So this area kind of evolved to scan in the horizon and take in more information, right? So to tell amygdala that no, 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 this is not the case, this is the case. Okay. So what happens is that when we have uncertainty, it pretty much shuts off the prefrontal cortex. It overpowers the thinking brain. And that kind of multiply the impact of uncertainty. Now we're not making decisions. Now we are uncertain. Now we are frozen. Now we can't think straight. So this is basically the mechanism as to what goes on from a neuropsychological perspective.
So it means that we have a lot of noise during uncertain times, which is the fear that we have, like our brain is trying looking for certainty. So how can we get through all those noise and, what kind of action that we can have to find the sense of clarity during those times?
In business world, there's a terminology called VUCA. VUCA means volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. That's pretty much the world we operate in. Okay, it's uncertain, it's volatile, it keeps on changing, and that's what prompted the need for higher brain regions to deal with chaos in the environment, because now every day is different, right? Today is different than yesterday. Today my environment is different, so I need to make decisions according to this new reality that is around me. Ours is an existence which is composed of this suffering, okay, which is borne out by this VUCA environment, okay. And the way to deal with it, the way to, to cut it short, how you're going to deal with uncertainty, how you're going to sort of be comfortable with uncertainty. Well, the trick is to engage the prefrontal cortex, or to strengthen the prefrontal cortex, because so it's going to be either or. Okay, so if your prefrontal cortex is stronger, it's going to take over the amygdala or the emotional side of it, right? I always tell this story that, imagine our ancestor in savannah, and the ancestor is sort of operating in a 300 meter square area where they are picking whatever they can, or they're just just making a living out of 4 square meter or 30 square meter, whatever their zone is. But then that ancestor, the grandpa, decides that, well, how about that mountain over there? What if I go over that mountain? Will there be more food? And his imagination, which we have brain regions for us to think positive about the future. Now he's creating this beautiful world that, oh, beyond that mountain would be, these orchards, and there would be mates, and, all the good things that a human being, or in the case of grandpa, a male, can think of, right? But then uncertainty kicks in, fear kicks in. Oh no, what if there are lions? What if there are hyenas? What if this? What if I fall over? So now there is temptation, but at the same time, there is danger. This is not a good situation for a human brain. So grandpa decided something. Well, he said that what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in steps. Okay. My 30 yards today, let me have whatever I have, right, until it runs out. Then I'm going to move the next 30 yards. And then I'm going to move the next 30 yards. And then I'm going to move the next 30 yards. Finally, one day I'm going to get to that mountain. So, in order to deal with uncertainty, we need to have that I will be on the other side of the mountain someday. That's definitely should be there. But at the same time, let me, just deal with my 30 yards today. I have my goals in that short span fulfilled, then I can move on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And that's how we did it as human beings to deal with that uncertainty. So the idea is to focus on the small goals that we have right in front of us.
I love this because actually I can relate this story to so many other similar examples in our modern lives nowadays, right? And I think it's very interesting in this point where I think you mentioned the small steps that our grandpa decided to do. That is also relatable to us. So when we make decision that we're gonna take a leap, we will do something new, we will learn new skills. We know for sure we wouldn't get there and we wouldn't do it bit by bit. Versus when you're in life and your fear, it kicks in because of external factors. So if it's something that is not in your control, you don't have a clue of the time frame that you need to get that done, for example, then that is harder for us to have in our mind the small steps, how we can get there. It's also about, things within our control versus things outside of our
Yes.
control.
I don't know if it rang this bell for you, Thao, but that process of sitting with it, sitting with the fear, working out what the fear is, and setting smaller goals to move towards a larger goal, that really makes it sound like much of what we learn to do in coaching is helping people go through that process of putting their
Absolutely.
prefrontal cortex back in charge of their amygdala. But also, something I've noticed in coaching is people are often, well, first of all, when they come, they don't realize they're afraid because they've got an overcoat of other feelings put over it, like anger's the classic one, right? They come into coaching and they're furious. And it turns out, actually, if we unbutton the angry coat underneath, what they are is afraid. And once we talk to the afraid bit, then the angry coat goes, oh, my work here is done. We're safe. But the other thing is that by helping people to explore the shape and the reality of what they're afraid of, quite often the level of uncertainty, that their perception of it can shrink. When they start the coaching process, whatever has landed that has planted fear is massive. And actually, particularly, Thao, you're so right, when there's external factors that are impacting it. But by unpicking it in a safe space, and also not bringing, we're quite hard on ourselves when we're afraid. I think this is right.
Yeah.
So we're quite angry with ourselves. Stop being so afraid and get on with it. And actually, I feel that until we have our prefrontal cortex speak kindly to our amygdala,
Yeah.
she's not going to calm down. If we can assure her that the proportionate response is in our grasp,
Yeah.
the volume on that fear just goes right down.
Why are we hard on ourselves when we cope with fear?
Because it makes us feel ashamed. Being afraid is a difficult thing to admit. Like, I guess, well, I mean, we live in groups, don't we? And it's maybe not attractive, or maybe it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to say, oh, I'm scared. We don't have other. It's a feeling we often hide from others, isn't it?
Yeah. Nobody brands themselves as a fear expert. Have you noticed that? No, there is no company that says we are the fear experts, right? This is psychological safety, courage, vulnerability. They use those terminologies because, as she's pointed out, and possibly she has noticed that in her clients, that nobody likes to admit that they are afraid. The word fear, and it has evolutionary biology roots, right? So the brain evolved a system where, in order to enhance survival, it came up with a very novel and a very amazing and a very efficient solution, because we were very, very weak compared to our predators, right? So the solution was, how about combine these weak monkeys together and turn them into a group, a social group, right? A tribe. Okay, so now a tribe will collect more food, better food. The tribe will have better fighting capacity. There will be more opportunities, the tribe, so survival and passing on the. So the most difficult job that the brain was confronted with was resolved by just bringing the monkeys together. Now, the problem is that now the brain is very, very sensitive about the place in that social order. So if the 10 people in savannah are walking together, and this one is a little scared or is not very good at doing things or bringing results, then the 9 might just throw him out of the group. When he or she is out of the group, right in the middle of the savannah, the brain goes mental. And this is exactly what happens when we go through loneliness. It's the brain that goes mental, right? The words we are talking is a very recent evolutionary aspect of our life, right? We spoke through body language. Okay? So fear was transmitted through facial expressions. When we were hunting, we would just look at our companions and we will show fear, and that means everybody will take cover, right? But at the same time, if I'm confronted with another tribe who is about to take me on, because fear is contagious, right? So if one of us show fear, then that would be contagious, and we might lose the battle or the war, which was not very good for survival and passing on the gene. So anybody who was afraid was not needed, was looked down upon. Okay. And that created this sense of shame in us. So every time we tell someone, are you afraid? You can tell a child, are you afraid? No, I'm not afraid, right? They don't want to be thrown out of the group, right?
I saw, Thao, that you were remembering our conversation. I think last week I'd said our two like big USPs that got us to the top of the food chain were our ability to collaborate and our ability
Exactly.
to And like a lot of human beings seem to be particularly blessed at doing something really sophisticated that takes us right to the edge of what our poor little brains are ready for. Whereas now, I think we're beginning to recognize that the human being that can say, I'm terrified, I'm really frightened, but I also believe that I can find a way through it. I also can put a label on this fear and then turn it into something else and seize opportunities. We're just getting to a point. And we've been on the planet a long time, right?
A long time, yeah.
And we've only just getting to the point where we're going, actually, that's quite attractive that you could admit you were afraid. Maybe that doesn't make you vulnerable. Maybe that means you've, got some skills and some resilience. But that's a long time we've taken to even be having this kind of conversation.
Here's my conclusion so far, right? And I'm still a student of neuroscience and fear and that research, is that fear is here to stay. That's for sure. And thanks for that, right? That fear is here to stay. Otherwise, we would not be, alive. The whole human race will disappear. We are all afraid of things. The intensity of it, that is what I am focused on. What we need to bring it down is to bring it down, the intensity of it, and that's the trick, and that's where things happen. That's where creativity happens. That's where innovation happens. That's where individual can turn around and challenge a 6-foot individual and say, excuse me, bring him on, right? I'm here to take you on. And this is exactly what I am after. So it's the intensity that we need to bring it out. And the education that, of fear is natural, fear is normal. Because what happens is that stress amplifies stress. Just the thought that I'm stressed will amplify stress. The thought that I'm afraid will amplify, your fear. So when I'm nervous, I tell myself that I'm not afraid. My body wants to do something. It could be someone is threatening me, so deal with it, go for it, right? Or it could be because my project is running late. So my body is telling me to do something. So I'm not afraid. It's my biological response to do something. It's called cognitive reappraisal. Okay, and this is something you deploy your prefrontal cortex. I think Helen was asking this question: is it a muscle? Yes, it's a muscle, and it's a muscle that needs to be trained, and that should be trained. And the more we train it, the more it ran in on our emotional side or our fear. So that's why they say that children should be exposed to controlled adversity early on. Because it's their prefrontal cortex is in the developmental stage, and it learns to control the amygdala early on. We have a memory system, and the memory system will record critical survival information with the intensity of emotions that it experienced at that point, right? So when you fall in love with someone, you remember that for a very, very long time. So that beautiful memory with intense emotions is stored. But at the same time, if you do something, like, for example, you have never done something and you were known as someone who don't take risk, and someday you came to my talk and I motivated you, or you went to Helen talk and or you went to somebody else's talk and you say, well, okay, I'll bring him on, and you start jumping off planes, and then it doesn't, that's too much. That's too much. It's going to train your prefrontal cortex in the other direction. It's going to confirm that, yes, you were right. This is dangerous. So baby steps, like you've done, right? That we want to take baby steps. And
Yes.
through that baby steps, we have to expose ourselves. That's the way to overcome fear, right? There is no shortcut. Yeah,
I
there is
think so.
no.
We have to experience it, right? Because I think, as you mentioned, our brains is gonna have like the memory of us being able to do that.
Yeah.
So later on in life, they wouldn't be like, you managed to do this in the past, you managed to achieve this, overcome this and that. So it means that similarly, this time you can do it as well. And I think from a coaching perspective, sometimes, we have those memories in our brain, but we can't get them out. So the coaching is really to get them out of your brain and remind you that, you were able to do this in the past. So please stop any negative self-talk and then start encouraging yourself using those memories in the past, right?
That's when a good coach will look at using a strategy like anchoring, like
Yes.
searching out a resourceful state, tapping into a time when you've successfully mastered your amygdala, kindly
Yeah.
and gently, but you've taken it along for the ride, and and anchor yourself to that feeling. Years ago, I used to teach to young people leaving care about how they could public speak confidently and give interviews to the press confidently and feel in control. We didn't use the expression boundaried all the way back then, but looking back at it, it was teaching them how to do that in a boundaried way. And of course, public speaking, often considered, particularly when we've never done it before, quite terrifying.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, but I'd had a very early, because we're not so aware of these things, are we? I'd had a very early experience of standing up in front of a school hall and doing a reading, and it had gone really well. So I had felt afraid, but experience had taught me that I would feel exhilarated on the other side, and had accidentally reframed, because I think what you were
Cognitive reappraisal, giving different meaning to a situation, basically.
we often address that as reframing in
Yeah, reframing. Yeah, same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had accidentally reframed this terrifying public speaking as exciting and exhilarating because I had anchored myself to the that came afterwards and the good feeling. So I taught this whole class full of young people leaving care that the fear and the excitement were almost exactly the same. And in practice, the real difference would be what label they would put on it. So we did this whole lesson where we spent ages convincing ourselves that when we were going to do this, we weren't afraid, we were excited. And it worked incredibly well. And they all went off and did their public speaking. And it wasn't until much later, and probably not even completely until this evening, Dr. Shah, when I was hearing you talk about it, that I understood why it had worked.
Helen, there is something else that we need to remember in the context of managing fear. If you expose someone to fear in one context, right, this can also help in other contexts as well. So when you help someone speak in front of an audience, right, and their prefrontal cortex is trained to control their amygdala, now it's going to do the same in another context as well.
So we generalize it quite
So,
quickly.
so yeah, in a way, because at the end of the day, it's a threat that it took over. Like, yes, we should have more context because it helps, right? We should also expose ourselves in multiple contexts. But all I'm saying is the benefit is transferred to other domains as well, other contexts as well. Yeah.
Basically, fear is here to stay. We will always feel that until, the rest of our life, right?
Yes.
However, the intensity
Intensity is
gonna be different. So the
yeah.
more we practice, we get used to dealing with fear,
Yeah.
the intensity gonna be less.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
it also depends on, each person's genes, characteristics as well, right? I think let's dive into real life scenario, shall we? I think we can definitely apply a lot of the principles that we talked about fears here, because I received the two questions from our audience about this. So the first one is from young adults who, at the stage where they are going through the transition from university life to early career, or they're moving to a new city, or they trying to figure out what the success looks like to them. And with so many options and, so much pressure to get it right within a certain time frame, it's really easy to get lost. And using what we have talked about, dealing with fear in uncertain times, practically, how can these young people start making confident choices when they're unsure about their future and, every part feels really risky? What are the things that they can do?
So basically, this is an age where it's an age of possibilities, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And obviously their brain is on overdrive. So there are two opposite tendencies. Okay. So it's, imagine you're holding a rope and there are two horses on at each end, right? And they are pulling you in either to the right or to the left. One is the dopamine circuitry, which is engaged in seeking system. Now, according to one scientist, the brain have systems. Okay. And there are 7 systems that that particular scientist discovered. And those systems are basically responsible for our drives and ambitions, right? And we are all different. Again, the intensity is different, right? So there is seeking system, there's fear system, there is anger system. I'm just giving you an example of 3. And there is also the care system as well, like the bonding and the love and the attachment system. So we're all individuals, and we all have different calibration of these systems. So someone will be very high in seeking system while low in anger system. Someone will be high in anger system and low in the seek. We're all individuals, and that's the basis of the neuro basis of individuality, right, that we need to keep in mind. So that seeking system is generally on high drive when we are in a particular age point, and this has something to do with evolutionary biology as well, because seeking means that what's on the other side of the mountain, because the resource is going to run out here soon, right? So I need to migrate. I need to move on. We are migratory creatures, right? We need to keep on, keep on, keep on. That's why we populated the whole entire earth, right?
Yeah.
So then you have this, the dopamine system, which is responsible for seeking, which is kind of the horse on the left-hand side, and it is, trying to pull you over there. But then you have the fear system on the right-hand side, which is saying, oh, hold on a second, well, take it easy, because you don't have experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have, that yet. So you are in this middle where you're confused, right? Now, the thing is that the best answer I can give to someone who feels they are lost is, one, understand it very, very clearly, that you have to go through this confusion for a certain period of time. Okay, you will start with this, and you might end up with something else. That's just the way the process is, right? It's just the way the process is, right? And secondly, in the context of choosing a career, in the context of choosing a path in life, your best guide is your neurobiology to deal with uncertainty. Okay, and those systems, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but to simplify it, your strengths and your weaknesses, that's your system. So always choose a path in life which is aligned with your strengths. That is your neurobiology. Okay, it could be you're good in biology, go, just start in that direction. Okay, don't fall for, because X has studied psychology and now they are this famous psychologist, or Y is a film actor and now they are millionaires. That's not your strength. Your strength is biology. If you're going to make millions or you're going to become the most famous person on the planet, your best bet is biology, right? And that takes care of not I mean 100% of it, but most of the uncertainty, because now you're focused. You can say, okay, I'm going to head in this direction. This is my best bet. And I'm going to be sort of choosing my path in life according to my strength. And that's basically your neurobiology.
like that. Can we just deep dive a little bit into that? So I like 2 points that you just mentioned. Number one is to accept that it will take time. They will
Yeah.
need to go through that process for sure. And the second thing is to choose a path that aligns with their strengths. One thing though, because at that age, right, when we're young, we haven't tried enough things.
That's why it takes
We
long.
don't have the full list of strengths, right? So we have to try things to be able to figure out our strengths. So I think that is why it comes back to point one, that you have to accept that it will be a process that you have to go through, for a period of time.
Okay, so to give you an example from real life, I had a parent because I run a teaching center. That's the business I established before I entered this business, this world of neuroscience. And so I run a teaching center where, the team of teachers teach English, maths, and science to children. So I had a mom who wanted me to guide her daughter about the path that she wants to take in life. So we sat down and I said, "What do you want to be?" She said, "I want to be a doctor." I said, "Okay, you want to be a doctor. Um, do you know what grades you need in GCSE to become a doctor?" Right? She said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, you need to know because it's not just the A level that's going to be a deciding factor. It's going to be your GCSE grades as well, right? And then if you get good grades in biology and chemistry, then you should try to become a doctor. If you are sort of A plus, sort of 9 or 8 in maths, and 5 or 4 in biology and chemistry, but you still wants to be a doctor because your cousin is a doctor, or that X individual is a doctor, or you saw a TV show where there was this attractive female who was wearing, the uniform, and now you want to be. Don't. That's not. It's not going to work, right? So, yes, we can be 15 years old or 16 years old. We still can find out our path just by looking at our grades. If you're working too hard on something, chances are it's not aligned with your neurobiology. You should be working hard, but it shouldn't be something that, let's suppose you sit down and you grab a biology book and you're thinking, let me grab a coffee. Let me grab a sandwich. Well, let me see my phone. Nah, that's not your lane. You're pushing it. Okay. If you are really, your brain is really into it, trust me, you will put the phone away, okay, and you will be focused, you will be interested, you will be looking for answers, right? That's something you'll be watching videos on it, right? So an advice to a young individual is like deep dive inside yourself and see what attracts you, right? Where you spend less time and achieve more, rather than more time and achieve less. That's something I would be advising them.
It does chime true with the lived experience again, which has been a pattern this evening, which is that it's a little like what we spoke about in our last conversation, Thao, where I said, if you want to find out what you should be doing, then you need to spend some time actually getting to know yourself and spend a little bit of time consulting your inner compass.
Yes, again and again, right? That is true in any case, and I think that's the most important thing. So I think our conversation today is just really, reinforcing the importance of that. I think let's move on to another inner self conversation, I would say. So in our second scenario is where, people are going through a big relationship change. So that can be a breakup in a romantic relationships, in a friendship, or found out that someone that they thought was their forever person isn't actually the right fit. And then that kicks in a negative self-talk. Keep saying in your head that, what if you can't find, someone else? Or what if you're not good enough? I think you are not good enough is a very common phrase in any kind of, negative self-talk. What are the steps they can do to change the negative self-talk that they have inside themselves? And I think for a lot of people, because of their experience in their childhood or, past experience, that negative self-talk is always there anytime, ready to, be triggered.
Well, I think it's first really important to acknowledge that I think pretty much everyone is afraid of having their heart broken.
Mm.
Generally speaking, there might be a few exceptions. And as Dr. Shah has said several times, we're all different, we're all individuals, but that is a really universal fear. It hurts everybody. And whenever it happens, it really does feel like a catastrophe at the time. So I guess the first thing is to acknowledge that it is really painful and it is a universal experience. And I guess that relationships are not maths tests.
Mm.
When a relationship changes shape or ends, that doesn't mean that either of you did something wrong. I think there's quite a prevailing narrative at the moment, that relationships need to be, perhaps that fairy tale pattern where there is going to be a forever person. And perhaps now that our health is often better and our longevity is increased, it's coming up more, because perhaps circumstances beyond our control would have led people to be able to believe that we might have more than one person on the planet that could be good for us, because people would die and they wouldn't necessarily be together for such a long lifetime. But the idea that perhaps a relationship, a romantic relationship ending doesn't mean that anybody did anything wrong. It might be that those inner biological skills and drives are simply taking two people in different directions. And I think the first step that I tend to do when I'm coaching is just have an explore around to see if that language of failure and self-criticism be reframed as this is a change, not necessarily a failure. There wasn't a test and you didn't fail it. And it's quite possible. I mean, there's obviously exceptions. Sometimes people behave really badly in relationships, but very often it's changes in one or both people that are not wrong. They just mean that that relationship is no longer a good fit, at least in the romantic sense. If we can take some of the tears and recriminations out of a breakup, actually, sometimes people can find something quite equanimous on the other side.
I think coming back to the point about negative self-talk, I wonder if this is purely based on past experience or it can be another factor that I'm missing here. So there will be scenarios where, there are people who can easily have that negative self-talk that I'm not good enough. But there won't be other people who, literally just blame someone else, like he or she is wrong. And then, I'm right. So I move on. So does that kind of inner talk happen just purely based on past experience, or is there any other factors that kicks in here?
I think it's a combination, really. I think if we've had a lot of criticism early in life, it's probably a lot harder, but it is definitely possible. An exercise I like to do in coaching is to ask the coachee, to ask the individual, is there someone that you really care about and like and admire? Can you think of someone that you think is a good, worthy person? And most people can find someone. It's pretty rare that there's no one.
Yeah.
And if they really can't, they can imagine someone and what they would be like. And then I like to ask them, is that person completely perfect? And generally they're not. And then they'll say, no, they're not so good at this, and they can be a bit funny about that, but actually they're a really good person. And we talk about how on balance they admire and respect and find this person likable and perhaps even a lovable person, not necessarily romantically, but lovable. And then I ask them to reframe what they are bringing to this coaching conversation. If this friend of yours, because it's very often their best friend, if your best friend came and said, I think this relationship has ended with my partner because I'm not good enough. I don't have enough energy. I don't know how to communicate what I want. If I've changed so much in the last 5 years, I'm not attractive enough anymore. If they to get back out there, I don't have the confidence. I can't keep up with modern dating. If this lovable, likable person that you feel warmth for came to you and told you that, what advice would you give them? And then I ask them to observe not just what they say, but how they say it. If your friend deserves this warmth and compassion, because that's nearly always what people say with their best friend. They're always kind and thoughtful and determined to see the best. If this person deserves this compassionate voice, this realistic and honest, you said they're not perfect, but kind and warm voice, why don't you deserve that voice?
And your example just make me think that to avoid or to reduce the number of times that we have negative self-talk, we need to be friends with ourselves. And I think that is the first thing that people need to address first before, trying to do anything else.
As my wise friend, Thao and I have heard this expression several times this week. I have a friend who's a psychotherapist, and she reminded me last week that we are the only person we will have a relationship with from our very first breath to the very end. And it's important that we work on that relationship.
Let me add a few thoughts as well. That's not my specialty, human relationships, romantic context, but just while Helen was talking, a few ideas came, which are connected to her ideas, by the way. I just want to make her argument more stronger by, adding these ideas. So people need to understand one thing, that the environment they operate in is not very helpful to form relationships. It's a very important factor. I tell you what, how. Phones, apps, everyone can swipe. What happens is that there is a phenomenon called FOMO, fear of missing out. Okay, so you have two phenomenons. You're living in a structure which is creating uncertainty. It is creating fear now. The fear is, well, I'm with this one. Well, that one looked good, right? So the grass is greener on the other side. So how about, I've, been there, done that, right? How about I try this one now? And what happens is that you need to understand what is happening neurobiologically. And this is something I want to talk to teenagers particularly, is that romantic attachment will create the most intense environment in your brain, particularly dopamine. Okay, that euphoria that we get when we are in love with someone, it's dopamine. And dopamine, the job of dopamine in this context is to make sure that the prefrontal cortex is quiet. I'm not listening to you. Quiet, quiet, shh, 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 shh. Because we are in savannah, right? There's so many dangers, and this is the opportunity. I don't want you to give me logical arguments that there is a line, there's hyena. I need a space where I can get on with this thing. So the dopamine deliberately, nature will deliberately make us stupid. Go into gullibility research. I've done a lot of gullibility, naivety research, right? Nature does make us stupid, right? In certain context, because it wants to get on with something, right? So now what happens is that euphoria is so good that people think that this is love, that this is how I should be feeling every single day. But what happens is that euphoria is not sustainable biologically. It has to come down, right? That euphoria was created strictly for one thing: get on with it and stay with each other until the baby. So there are stages, right? There are stages of emotions. Stage one, whoops, high. Okay, come on, make a baby, make a baby, make a baby, right? So now this is in evolutionary biology speaking, back in the day. So now, I mean, obviously our brain have evolved, and now we have, it's nothing to do with babies anymore, but the old patterns stay with us, right? So now that the baby is here, the genes are transferred. Now let's chill out a bit. And most importantly, let's stay together until that baby is good enough to run around. Okay. So now my euphoria is going to come down, and there will be this mellow attachment, which can be considered as boring for some people. So what they do is now they're looking for that high, that drug, right? It went up, it came down. Now I need to fall in love with this one so I can get my cocaine again, right? Now it's going to come down again, and now I need to look for someone else. So what is happening is that you have this environment around you which has created opportunities for that. So it's not your fault that somebody is leaving you. Don't go there. It's not your fault.
Mm.
Your environment is not helpful. So don't accuse yourself that, oh, it's something because I look a certain way or my body is looking a certain. No, 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 no. You are unfortunately in a very unhelpful environment, right? We were going through, as a civilization, we are going through a stage where we need to do some adjustments, right? But obviously there will be casualties along. That's just the way it is. So now Helen mentioned that, someone who was that, your friend who said that, we come alone and we die alone. This is exactly how you should be thinking, particularly in the modern context, right? I'm okay with you. I'm okay without you, right? And this is critical. Why? Because what happens is, and when you put a lot of pressure on yourself, like fear, and also if you have a history, like there is a theory called attachment style theory. It's one theory of relationships, right? It's not the whole story of human relationship. It's just one side of it. Then your past experiences, then your personality type, then so many things shape your personality.
Mm.
But once that fear kicks in, whatever was the reason behind it, right? Once that fear kicks in, you're gonna act weird now.
Mm.
Right? And you're going to start destroying your chances of more relationships.
Yeah,
Right?
you're
Okay.
not being your authentic self
Yeah,
anymore.
you're gonna be thinking, no, I was smiling that way, I was dressing that way. You're not gonna be yourself, right? Because you're blaming everything on yourself. Now fear has kicked in. So now your prefrontal cortex is not thinking straight. You are under the influence of emotions. So when we start a business, when we are after a career in life, or we are after a relationship, we need to understand this reality. I'm gonna give you again a story. So grandpa in Savannah came out of the cave because he had to make a decision that he needs to grab something to eat. So either grandpa is going to go straight or right or left because behind him is a cave. That's no option. But he saw a lion over the other day, straight. Over there he saw hyenas. Over there he saw leopards. So now there's uncertainty. Fear kicks in. Grandpa is frozen. Deploy nonchalance. Decide either direction. Either you're going to bring food today or you're going to become food today. That's your existential condition. That uncertainty is replaced by a risk, which the brain is comfortable with. It's 50-50 now. Either I'm going to be food or I'm going to bring food. So grandpa starts heading straight in that straight direction, right? Now he made the decision to move. So that nonchalance enabled him to get out of uncertainty and move. The decision is made. So he reached the tree where there was a lion, and now there is no lion. So he's scratching. What happened? I thought there was a lion. The pictures that you are creating, the movies that you're creating about this is going to happen and that's going to happen, it has nothing to do with reality. The universe has its own rhythm and movement, and I call it luck. Nonchalance and accept that there is such a thing as luck. You might become food or you might bring food. You might end up as an 80-year-old with no one around you, or you might have the most amazing relationship. We don't know. That's beyond your control. But always, always, always don't blame yourself. Be nonchalant about it. I'm okay if I have you. I'm okay if I don't have you. I'll have my career, I have my health, I'll do this and I'll do this, I'll travel around the world. There are so many things that you can do. And by the way, we don't just need romantic relationships. We need allies in our life. And there could be anyone. There could be friends, and there could be mentors, and there could be parents, you name it, right? As long as the brain has allies, we are happy. This is just one form of alliance, the romantic relationships. We all have our weaknesses, we all have our strengths. What we need to do is, if we have a good enough partner, good enough, right? And if we want relationships, that's your choice. then just stay there.
A lot of the time, it's not even the person that's good enough. It's about whether or not the quality of our relationship and our connection to that person is good enough. And if we've reached what some people consider the boring stage, actually, there's a fantastic expression that I haven't heard outside of polyamory circles where it's highly acknowledged the power and addictiveness of what they call new relationship energy,
Yeah.
which is what Dr. Shah was describing there. And it's much more acknowledged, I think, in the more sort of fairy tale rom-com way of describing relationships when we're in strictly monogamous circles. There's this idea that if we find exactly the right person, we can have that limerence forever.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way. Whereas in circles where there's an acceptance, perhaps, that there'll be more than one relationship at any given time or over time, the idea that new relationship energy is really enjoyable and it's completely legitimate to have a great time with it. But be aware, it is not that individual.
Yeah, and it's going to come down, and it's going to come down.
Yeah, it's not forever. Whereas if we can work on the quality of our connection, perhaps sometimes, even if we're non-monogamous and we are going to go and seek a new partner, not to the detriment of no longer working on an existing relationship. Or, for example, in these days where one of the things that makes it scary is, what if I settle down and make a child with this person, and then I don't want to be in a relationship with them anymore? And I would say another way to turn down the risk, again, is to frame relationship changes as not failure. Those who work on the quality of their connection with their co-parent have shown us, so we all know someone who has managed to successfully co-parent a child when they're not actually in a romantic relationship anymore. I suspect in the past, where where divorce was less socially acceptable, there were lots of people that were only co-parenting and being respectful and kind to each other. They didn't have a romantic relationship anymore, but they remained married anyway. Now we're kind of exploring that it is possible to fail in some kind of conventional sense of a relationship and still work on the quality of our connection with someone. Because don't you feel like a lot of the time we say, oh, if we broke up, that was the wrong person, that was the wrong relationship I was investing in? But actually, if you spent 5 years having, right, you had new experiences with that person, you maybe taught one another something, you might have, to be really practical, you might have secured property together that you might not have been able to secure if either of you were alone, that you can now divide equitably. That you didn't waste 5 years.
Yeah, I completely agree, because it's just, at some point, if relationship ends, it's purely just because the two people are growing in different directions, right? And then they don't have the same direction anymore. And that's just at a point in time. It doesn't say that, over the last few years has been like a failure. Just one final thing, though. I have a follow-up question on one of the things you mentioned. Can we touch again on the fear of rejection point?
So the brain would record important events, survival events, right, with emotional salience. Salience means intensity. Okay. So you fall in love with someone. Whoops, that's a lot. That's a lot, right? So the brain will record that information. So what happens is that now you are with that person and you're walking by, let's say, a river, or there is a song playing, or there's a particular restaurant, or there's a perfume or a cologne that individual is wearing. All that information will be recorded with an emotional salience. So you will remember that song, you will remember that scene, everything, right? Similarly, the brain will also record negative information with a lot of emotional salience. So imagine this: our grandpa in Savannah walking, and grandpa saw something hanging from the tree, and it's red and it's round. So grandpa plucked it, smelled it, tasted it. Now, the whole information is recorded by the brain. The height of the tree, the kind of leaves on the tree, the vicinity of the tree. This is critical survival information. So now a lot of dopamine and a lot of positive emotions are attached to this tree to make sure that grandpa comes back here again and pluck. This is a source of. Now grandpa is coming back, and grandpa saw something with 4 legs and a big mane and when it looks like a cat, but it's quite a huge cat, right? And then that cat jumped and tear apart an antelope.
Mm.
Whoa, what the hell was that? So now grandpa's brain will record that information with fear.
And then he will not come back.
This thing can tear, this thing can tear you apart because, so in both instances, survival is enhanced now. Because every time grandpa is now walking towards that tree, but he's looking over, to make sure that the cat is not around, right? So he's going to pluck the fruit, but he's also watching for the cat. So this is so those strong emotions and the memory of those emotions survived him that day, right? So same here is when we have a relationship where things doesn't work out, and particularly when one of the parties more invested than the other party, it's very, very painful for that party, right? So now the brain would record that information with a lot of emotional intensity because this is a critical survival and passing on the gene moment, right? So now every time, now what will happen is this is where we need to be careful. So now you're going out with someone, or in most cases, people will be like, nah, hell with it, I'm done with it, right? It's a protective mechanism.
Mm.
It's a protective mechanism. They don't want the pain again. Or now they're going to be in the new relationship, they'll be walking on eggshells. So it's the brain that'll be constantly reminding them, take it easy, there could be a lion. Take it easy, there could be a lion, right? And unfortunately, or fortunately, the only way to overcome a bad breakup is to form a new relationship as soon as possible. A good, obviously the good one, right?
Yeah.
So this means that don't just spend your time sobbing and crying in a room and, no, go out and meet new people. Because now the only way we're going to overcome that fear and we're going to sort of tamp down the strong emotions is that when we form a new relationship, that individual is a nice individual, and this is something we were looking for, that memory. So now the prefrontal cortex will keep reminding the amygdala, no, 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 no. That's not how things work. Look, this is better. So this will, bring down our stress response. And the new memory will take over the old memory. And now we are looking at relationships in a healthy way, right? Rather than being scared and being avoiding it.
Yeah, we need to get new information to replace the old one. Like what it actually does to your body when you have that fear of being rejected or you go through that.
Oh, it's a very painful one. So basically, understand that the circuitry that are engaged in your social relationships, okay, would engage the parts of the brain which are engaged in physical pain. So when it doesn't matter if someone is hitting you with a stick or there is fear of rejection, the brain, the same areas will be engaged, the pain areas. Okay. Relationships, all kind, right? But in a romantic context, it's more intense. Okay. It will create a lot of pain in the brain. Okay. And it will create a lot of joy in the brain as well. Okay. If they are working, then there is a lot of happiness, right? So some neuroscientists claim that 50 to 67% of human happiness is dependent on the quality of their relationship, not the quantity, the quality of their relationships. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships, any alliances that we form with other human beings. So if something is going to be, is a source of a lot of pleasure, then you have to watch out for the other end as well. If that thing is missing, it's going to be a lot painful as well. Okay. So if a relationship is a particularly romantic relationship is a source of a lot of happiness and a lot of pleasure and a lot of joy, then there is the other end as well when we will not have that. But what we need to do is we need to understand our neurobiology and understand how it works. And then we need to change our behavior or modify our behavior according to that information that I'm going through this pain. And it's very difficult to do, I know. So you need obviously a psychotherapist or life coach to guide you in that phase. But you need to understand that yes, it will be painful. Yes, it will be painful for some time, not forever. That's for sure. But the thing is that fear of rejection is this phenomenon that they will throw me out, and then I will be in the middle of savannah. Okay. And then there will be dangers all over. Now, what do you think is motivating you to succeed in this business? Or my business or Helen's business? What is it apart from food on the table? There's more to it.
Impact on other people's lives, happiness.
No.
Oh, no.
No. You can
No?
say whatever you want to say. I don't accept that from a neuroscience perspective. No. Yeah, that reason is there. There's something more deeper than that. We need.
Okay.
I'm going way deeper into it. Okay, and once you understand it, then things will make sense. Okay. Understand that human hierarchy is the most powerful thing that we have. And there is biological basis of it, okay? Why do we want to do things to change humans or to do good for humanity? Why? It's a noble thing, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is that every brain wants to be at the center of attention. Every single brain on this planet wants the cameras on it. Okay? Because when the cameras are on me, this tick that my brain is assigned to, that means, and if I'm praised, and if I'm at the higher level of social hierarchy, that means I have more allies and I can pass on the gene more.
That sounds a little bit like we feel safer when we have connection.
Yes.
I'm respectful of the fact that that's an evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, evolutionary psychology. Yeah. Our brain is after attention, which is a very positive thing, by the way. Okay. So now and this is where I'm going to connect the social life now. And so how I'm going to get attention, how I'm going to be loved, how I'm going to be cared for when I do something for you. Because my brain is selfish and your brain is selfish, right? So when I do something for you, you're going to give me the most precious thing: attention, respect, status. Now, I'll give you an example. Old Soviet Union, right? And America. Whenever there were Olympics, normally either one of them would be either first or second, or they were in the top 3 positions, right? Soviet Union and United States, China as well, but let's stick to Soviet Union example because it was a strictly communist society. The Americans were hoping that they would be millionaires, apart from status, that they will be millionaires, right? After they win gold medals, there'll be contracts and there'll be sports cars. What were the Soviets fighting for? Why they wanted medals? Because the currency in the communist world was status. So you had people working hard to become the best scientists. You have people who wanted to become the best at this, but so they can get social status. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. That's a very positive thing. That's a force of goodness. So now what's the opposite of this? Rejection by society, rejection by people. So this is where my brain wants to be. This is where my brain hates to be. So there are evolutionary biology This is the evolutionary biology explanation. Yes, there are other schools of thoughts as well.
I think if we're going into relationships or we're entering the field of seeking out a romantic relationship, and we have loaded our desire to find a romantic companion with the enormous gravity of being so that losing them would be akin to being ostracized.
Yes.
We are without hope of creating a functional, healthy relationship.
Yes.
Because actually, that's a disproportionate amount of weight to put on a romantic relationship. There are friends, there is family, there is ourselves, all of whom, in our current society anyway, can feed us. And actually, if we lose our romantic partner, seldom is that the same as losing all our connections and all of our collaborators. But I think that's because of some of the ways we talk about monogamous romantic relationships, again, like a fairy tale, like we must find the right one and we must live with them until the day we both die, presumably at exactly the same time, because otherwise one of us is going to be sad.
Yeah.
There's all relationships end in tears, even if you're lucky enough to be living to a ripe old age together, unless you both are planning to die at the same moment. There's going to be sadnesses, but that's not the only way that we can have happiness and fulfillment or be safe in the tribe. There are lots of other ways.
Yeah, allies. Basically, it's allies. But what I wanted to give was the overarching social dimension, right? Where romantic relationship is one side of it. But in the context of romantic relationship, there is another powerful added element, attraction. Okay, which is a very, very strong biological inclination or a function. So you've rejected me. That means biologically I'm not.
Oh, yeah, I'm unattractive. The horror.
Yeah, the horror. That means I'm not up for the job. That's what the brain is thinking. Whatever the job attraction is supposed to achieve, right? So that means that now this dimension again, it is that exclusion, but now you are attacking another dimension, which is going to make me even more unwanted in the tribe. Okay, because I'm not just I might be unattractive, I might not be able to do the job that my brain is assigned to. So there, it's very complex. Basically, it's very complicated. This whole. That's why it's good not to blame ourselves for everything that happens to us in life. Right? Things are so complicated that once you enter the knowledge world, you realize that how uneducated you were, literally, right? And how vast human knowledge is. I have I used to just throw my conspiracy theories like they were the ultimate truths. But once I entered the research world, I realized, oh, what the hell was I doing? Right? Now I have to make sure that, whatever I say is backed by science before I say something, right? And still, I need to stick to a very narrow niche for me to be able to talk about that narrow niche, right? So our human life is very complicated. The evolutionary biology story is this, and that story at least gives me comfort when I'm facing difficulties. So, according to evolutionary biology, and this is very important for young people to understand that not everything is their fault. So, according to evolutionary biology, this is the evolutionary biology story, by the way. It's just one explanation of things, right? That when life started on this planet, a tiny bacteria started life, and the Earth was like, "What are you doing here? Who are you?" So the bacteria responded. That's how the story goes, right? That I don't know where I came from. The only thing I have, this urge, is to somehow flourish now. That's the only thing I know. So the earth said, look, listen to me. You are uninvited guest here. I'm not changing my ways for you. If you can manage to adapt to my ways of doing things, be my guest. But I'm not changing anything for you. Not my weathers, not my spinning, not my winds, no, nothing for you. So the bacteria say, okay, thank you very much. At least I have a room to stay tonight. He said, yeah, you have a room to stay tonight. And then now the bacteria is scratching and say, what do I do? Wow. What if I multiply? If I multiply, then I would disappear maybe if the winds hit me or the cold hit me or the heat, but my children will survive, right? And the more copies of me, the better it is that I deal with this unhospitable environment. But then something else happened. As they started to multiply, competition started. Because there are few resources now. Inhospitable earth, competition. This is our existential condition. This is it. This is the source of our suffering. This is the source of our problems. This is the source of our sorrows. Okay? And it's not changing for us. It's not going to change till the end of this planet. These are the two realities. The earth, we have to adapt to it, right? Competition, so in relationships, in jobs, in everywhere you go, there will be competition, right? So you should not be blaming your misfortunes on yourself. There are powerful, phenomenons that are impacting your life, which are beyond your control. The only thing that you have control over is your prefrontal cortex, how it gives a different meaning to a situation. That's your survival mechanism. So when I said that the brain is after attention, I didn't mean that in a like an evil way that we all want to be supermodels or things like that. That's our deep biological drive, right? So you can go in a wrong direction, okay, and try to get attention the wrong way, okay, or you can go in the right direction and try to get attention the right way, which is doing something for humanity. Having a purpose in life, according to neuroscience, is as good as having allies in life. The brain, again, has something, but critically, that purpose should be larger than yourself and for humanity, because the brain is very sensitive about your place in a social order, and the brain is also sensitive about what you are doing for the group. Okay, so when you give money to a beggar, why you feel good? You just given something very precious of yours to a beggar, but you felt good because the brain is saying, okay, good, do this, because there is this biological force that also compels us to do things for other people, right? And when you choose a career which is aligned with this aspect that, I'm good at this and it's at the service of humanity, this is where you combine that spiritual element of having the right purpose in life. Imagine this, right? This is the mission that you have at the top, and this is where you are. Now, you are heading toward that mission, and there will be relationship breakdowns. There will be new people coming in. There will be insults, and there will be humiliation, and there will be failures, and there will be storms, and there will be rocks thrown at you. You're moving up, and you're moving up, and you're moving up towards your mission. That mission becomes your ally, your partner in this difficult earth, right? So that's why having a purpose in life is so critical for happiness.
That purpose in your life, that will never go away. It will always be there. There are a lot of things that I learned from this conversation, things like fear is here to stay. You have to be friends with yourself. chaos is inevitable, but confusion doesn't have to be permanent. The conversation we have with ourselves shapes how we move forward and how we can overcome uncertain times. So all of those beautiful lessons are definitely very valuable to myself, and I think my audience as well today. So thank you so much for sharing. Guys, hopefully the talk that we have today was useful to you guys. And if you guys would like to connect with Helen or Dr. Shah to get to know more about neuroscience, get some live coaching, please feel free to join our community and connect with them on there. See you next time.